After One Piece Episode 1, I was impressed to find that it's actually not only good, but exceeding even my highest expectations. So, going into Episode 2, well, surprised to find I expected more of the same, but what I got was an Episode 2 that blows Episode 1 out of the water. From, oh my god, the amazing Buggy the Clown, to Garp, to Shanks, this live action truly is incredible and continues to exceed expectations. So, let's jump into the episode. As well, hit the subscribe button. Our episode 1 coverage got 16,000 views and we gained nearly 70 subs and 611 likes and 211 comments. Well, I think we can outdo that. Let's shoot for 650 likes and 250 comments. So tell me your thoughts on episode 1 in the comments below. Let's get into it. So we open up the episode with a flashback to seeing Luffy using his newfound Devil Fruit ability, and I just like how almost nonchalant Luffy having powers is to the bartender lady. She's basically here, though, to explain what the Devil Fruit does, which, just like in the source, is in return for special powers, the person who ate the fruit cannot swim, and water is basically their kryptonite. Luffy is very excited, though, to join Shanks' crew, but he tells him the truth in that Shanks just won't allow him to come. And I love the acting in this scene. It was full of emotion, and you can tell that both Shanks and Luffy were disappointed. Cut to the present, and Luffy is really excited to have his first real pirate score, and while Nami is incredibly annoyed by his antics, needing absolute quiet, Nami is still reluctant to join, and really, Luffy is just annoying the crap out of her. But I think Luffy laying his head on Nami was also a very cute scene. Really just goes to show the connection that these two characters have, even in the manga and the anime. I also love the quip of Zoro telling them to quiet down. Eventually, though, they are captured, but by, surprisingly, Buggy. This was surprising, but still very good, as this is not at all how they were introduced to Buggy in the original. In fact, this entire episode, outside of a few story beats, is mostly entirely different. This episode basically represents the Orangetown arc, and episode 1 represents Romance Dawn. And we kind of can't really avoid it, I think, but overall this episode did a lot to really well, and arguably did it better than the manga even could in one or two instances. A big part of that is because of Buggy. They absolutely nailed this character, and it's easily and far away my current favorite in the One Piece live action. He is a lot different from the source material counterpart in this live action, but at the same time, pretty much the same. He's menacing, irreverent, funny, and deranged, all at the same time, and the actor for Buggy really does keep you guessing at all times what this guy's gonna do. His portrayal is so good, and I think in due part to his quips, how great his voice and acting is, and also how well he captures the original character while finding something to bring to it that is totally unique from the original. This to me isn't really the most surprising actually, because I know for a fact that the creator of One Piece, Eiichiro Oda's favorite character is Buggy, and because of that, he made sure that they recreated Buggy in the live action to be the best it possibly could be, and it shows. Keep in mind, if Eiichiro Oda didn't like a scene, they had to reshoot it, no matter what. He's also a good foil to Luffy in this episode, as his end goal is the same as Luffy. He wants to find the One Piece and become the king of the pirates. However, the means to an end are totally out of whack and evil. He wants everyone to love and adore him. He went to Orangetown and basically enslaved everyone to be a part in his messed up circus act, telling the audience when to laugh, when to clap, and when to be silent, all the while they're dressed in rags and chained to their seats. When people say that Buggy is darker in this version, they mean it. He's nothing short of terrifying, and that's why he's so great. In many ways, this is not really how he's portrayed in the manga at all. I also love oh my god, the scene is so great when Buggy figures out that Luffy knows Shanks, and the acting in it is so good. Which actually, this moment doesn't happen until way later in the manga as well. So he takes Luffy's hat and talks to it menacingly, as if the hat is Shanks. Apparently, in the past, Shanks betrayed Buggy, but we don't know much more than that. Even Buggy asks Luffy if Shanks betrayed him too, and Luffy, and really only Luffy, can stay silent. That's kind of a sore spot for him. But really, Buggy just chews up the scene whenever he is in it, and I think for many people, if you haven't already that is, will come out with a new appreciation for the character. I know I did, and I now see the manga version of Buggy so much more fascinatingly and with a little bit more depth than I did prior. But we also need to mention Buggy's ability, his action scenes in the CGI, which I have a lot to say about. First of all, there really is no way to say this, well, not to say this outright, but the CGI for Buggy is perfectly fine and dare I say quite good for what it's trying to pull off. No matter what anyone says, there is no way you can make Buggy splitting into parts look natural. Even in the manga and anime version, it doesn't look natural or, quote, good, as many people may say it to be. It's flawed, and that's because there is actually no way in any form of entertainment besides maybe books that you can make dismemberment of any ability look natural. In fact, I'd say this portrayal is so good because it's just as good as the anime or manga. And the reason I say this is simple. When Buggy is split into parts, the sections there are filled with like basically a skin tone color, which is exactly the same way they do it in the anime and manga. And even then, it looks unnatural because you're talking about taking a person and splitting them into parts due to a mystical fruit that gave him the ability to do such a thing. I mean, come on. I think where people should really be focusing on though, is the action sequences with Buggy, because they use the Chop Chop ability to perfect effect and create fight sequences that are unlike anything we've ever seen in live action. We see this with how Buggy knocks out Luffy initially with a dismembered fist, then in the big fight of this episode, he splits himself into parts using Chop Chop Cannon, which, by the way, amazing when he says that, to create floating body parts that basically terrorize the Straw Hats. He's basically surrounding them, but not with people, with his body parts. But like I said, overall, amazing portrayal of Buggy the Clown, pretty much perfect and kind of a way better than the originals. It just, depends on preference. As for Buggy's pirate crew, I'll keep it short, but I like Kabuji in this adaptation too. Not only his design is amazing, but he captures the character perfectly with no compromises, and dare I say, maybe better than the manga? At least where I'm at in the manga, at least. Also, I love how he menacingly rides a unicycle into the scene with Zoro and Nami captured and locked up. Just a nice touch that is 100% something that, the character would do in the original manga. As well, his motivation is interesting, as Zoro killed his brother, and now he basically wants revenge, but also wants to take his time trying to basically break Zoro. So honestly, a pretty good character motivation for him. Which reminds me, one of the complaints was Zoro's acting in the first episode. I think this episode sort of proves my theory that maybe the first episode really hamstrung a lot of episode 1, because this is a much better representation in episode 2 of what the series actually will be and the quality, especially for Zoro. In fact, I praised the first episode a lot, but I think this episode, episode 2, is way better. Like, not even a competition. So, I'm glad Zoro actually feels like Zoro now, and his acting is really good in this series. Zoro, 0 compromises so far. Also, a big story throughout this episode is the flashbacks to Luffy's past as a kid, much like Buggy. I like this, and it's one of the best parts of the episode and really opened my eyes. I have no complaints about one of these flashbacks, in fact, really only praise. But the one that I do have is that Luffy's child actor, he's really not good. But I do think he's serviceable, and also, it's just a child actor. He's literally trying his all, so you can't really fault the kid. 99% of child actors just aren't as good as people claim them to be. They're kids, so good job to him. I really appreciate his effort, and for a kid, honestly, it's not bad at all. Other than that, these glimpses into Luffy's past are sprinkled throughout the episode to tie everything together. It's really the cohesive glue of this episode's plot. The emotion from the brilliant acting from Shanks is wonderful, as he has to tell Luffy he's going away and never coming back, which at first seems rather harsh, but Shanks' delivery really does remind me of a father figure who just doesn't want to leave and stay with Luffy. It's really heartbreaking. And you can tell this when he gives Luffy his hat in one of the most emotional scenes of the series thus far. Shanks is nearly in tears as he tells Luffy that his hat is very important to him, and that when he becomes a pirate one day, to find him and return it to him. This is why Luffy cherishes this hat so much, which may perplex people like Nami as an example, as she sees it as just, a straw hat. But to Luffy, this is a representation of a father figure that to this day keeps inspiring him to pursue his dream. And you can really tell that Luffy got a lot of his moral compass and passion directly from Shanks. This in One Piece is called inherited will, and it's a huge theme in One Piece that we'll be seeing time and time again, so I am really glad and quite moved that even they carry over such an important theme from the manga to this live action that they could have just easily ignored. Also, I'd like to drop in here and explain to you the scene with the Sea King, but I'm not gonna lie, even as a manga reader, I have no idea, so let me explain why that is. Basically, Luffy is kidnapped, and the boat is capsized by what is called a Sea King, and these are basically giant creatures in the ocean. Mostly though, the Grand Line ones are the most giant ones, like hundreds and thousands of times bigger than the biggest ships in our world. So, really big. Shanks saves Luffy from the Sea King by telling it to get lost, and in the anime and manga, this scene is rather strange because it's like Shanks is speaking their language or something, you know? It's like, or maybe it understands Shanks, but it was just something we all looked over in the manga and anime. Well, in this live action, you can see something in Shanks' eye change to make the Sea King leave. This is massive because this is not in the original and reveals quite early on an ability that not even I know that Shanks has yet, and I'm nearly 300 chapters into the manga. Basically into like season 4 or 5 territory in live action time equivalent. Either way, huge moment, and this is where we learn Shanks lost his arm and finally dons the classic cape, completing the badass and cool image of Shanks we all know and love from longtime fans. Also, another mention is the Garp and Kobe scene, where Garp basically asks why Kobe became a Marine. This scene was absolutely wonderful and really showed that Garp is straight up a daddy. I mean, look at him. Tight suit, grizzled look, cape. Come on, y'all. Ladies were going wild for this scene. Anyway, seriously though, this scene was just great. From music to the acting to really just everything. Even Bogart was perfect in his role as Oppenheimer here. I love how Kobe tells Garp that he's not working with Luffy, but instead was set free by Luffy and gave him a reason to dream again. And we know this because in the last episode, Kobe talked about how he doesn't even know what to do after leaving Alvida. He's directionless, but Luffy convinced him to follow his dream as a Marine, even if that meant Luffy would become Kobe's enemy. And that is exactly what we see here. Kobe is now helping Garp track down Luffy to capture him, even though he's somewhat reluctant to it. And I won't spoil you for those who haven't seen or read One Piece before, but to those who have, Garp is basically taking on a lot of traits from Smoker in the original. You know, but I'll leave it at that. Also, very nice details I like in this episode are the transponder snail and Garp's really cute tiger hat. These are two very important pieces of iconography for One Piece, and without it, the live action just wouldn't feel authentic. So the fact they do have them is nothing short of amazing. I did though think that Axar Morgan being tied up was very abrupt, very strange choice, but it's not the biggest deal they skipped over that detail considering the context, which is that Axar Morgan was corrupted and he got found out that he was corrupted. Editor C-Man here forgot to mention actually a good chunk of stuff, so I'll tackle it here. For one, the outfit Nami wears in this episode is the very same one in Orangetown and probably one of her most iconic outfits. Orange skirt, white shirt with blue stripes, and boots. Very iconic, and as well, the outfit she wore in episode 1 was actually taken from Oda's original concept art of Nami, which you can find here that looks way different from the original we all know and love. Also, speaking of Nami, this scene at the end leaves a huge question mark and some nice details. Who is Nami talking to? That is the question. Will this affect her relationship with Zoro and Luffy? Is she betraying them? Though besides that, I like the little small transponder snails that Nami has. In my opinion, One Piece really deserves its own art genre name, like Pirate Punk or something like that. The tech of this world is beyond fascinating and at times borderline JRPG magical fantasy. Also, the scene where Luffy eats the map of the Grand Line is iconic and hilarious, even though this is not something Luffy has ever done in the original source material. Overall though, this episode was like a couple notches better than the first episode in my opinion. Buggy and the flashback scenes really were great and the action and choreography were amazing. And this is coming off me watching all the John Wick films like literally days prior to the live action coming out, so that's my frame of reference. You know, John Wick. To me, One Piece live action so far is going beyond even what I think it would have after episode 1. This live action is truly special and probably going to end up as one of the best we've gotten so far. So let me know, what did you think about episode 2, especially for Buggy, Garp, and the flashback scenes? I really need to hear your thoughts. Yes, that's right, need. So drop them down below. If you haven't, check out my 90-minute Drum Island review for One Piece's manga, and as well, become a patron where you'll gain access to my first 2 Arabasta videos, and as well my 90-minute mega Arabasta review before it hits free feeds. Thanks for watching, bye-bye.